Are you committed or are you just interested? Many times we say we're committed to an outcome, but our results show us something different. This week's guest shows us what true commitment looks like. He is a 5 times CrossFit Games champion. Matt Fraser has spent the better part of 5 years sacrificing everything else in order to achieve his goal. As Matt puts it, if you truly want to achieve your goal, you leave absolutely nothing to chance.
This is the No Excuse to Miss podcast.
Welcome to the No Excuse to Miss podcast. I'm your host, Scott Volquartsen, and this week's guest has accomplished more than most of us. He's pushed himself physically and mentally to a point that most of us can only dream about. He's been called the fittest man alive. He's won the CrossFit Games an unprecedented 5 times, and that just begins to tell the story of who Matt Fraser is. Welcome to the show, Matt. How are you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
I am very good. Thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
I know before we hit record, you said that this is one of the first days that you've taken like a half day off in a long time, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. I don't even know if it was a full half day. I think my wife and I just went for a walk and we got back. I was like, hey, I have 45 minutes. I was like, I should go get in the garage and start assembling some stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to sit on the couch for 45 minutes, middle of the day. So that was a little out of character. So it's a nice treat.
That's awesome. So before we get into it a little bit, for those that don't know, can you just give us a little bit of background of how you got into, like the CrossFit world, and even before that, how you were a competitive weightlifter before suffering an injury?
Yeah. So starting super early on, I found Olympic weightlifting when I was about 12 years old, and fell in love with it right away. It became my primary sport. I played other sports through middle school, high school, but weightlifting was the one that was consistent. So, trained 6 days a week doing that, all the way through high school. Near the end of high school, got recruited to live and train at the Olympic Training Center for 2 years. Did that in Colorado Springs, and then moved to the Olympic Education Center. While I was in Colorado Springs, I suffered a pretty severe back injury. I broke my L5 in 2 spots. So got a surgery, 6 bolts, 2 metal plates holding everything together. But, looking at that surgery, was told like, hey, your weightlifting career is done. The most exercise you'll ever do is a light jog. So like start accepting that. And, obviously I wasn't going to accept that, mate. So that was a full year recovery. I was the better part of a year in a full torso brace. So like hard plastic brace from nipple to hip, couldn't do anything. It was pretty miserable to say the least. And then, but, made a full recovery, hit personal records, got back into competing on the national level after that injury. And then, stepped away from the sport of weightlifting and decided to focus on school. So moved from Michigan back to Vermont, attended University of Vermont, but there was just a big void. I went from training 2-3 times a day for the last 10 years to nothing. So a combination of not having that outlet of physical activity, just that competitive drive, but then also I went from working out to nothing. So I just started gaining weight. I just started packing on a few pounds, like the typical freshman 15. And so I knew I either need to clean up my diet or start working out. And I was like, I don't want to stop eating ice cream and pizza. So I started working out, and I just went to a CrossFit gym and basically kind of explained it like, hey, I have no interest in doing CrossFit. I just want to do Olympic weightlifting. Can I like use your bars and bumpers and just come in whenever? And they were like, yeah, of course, do whatever you want. And then slowly started getting coerced into, 1 workout per week or, and then like couple workouts per week. And then it turned into 1 workout per day. But the owner of the gym signed me up for my first competition. And because I didn't have the money to sign up. So he was like, I want you to compete. I want you to see your potential. So here, I'll sign you up. But if you win any money, you need to buy a pair of CrossFit shoes. And so I was like, sweet, like no skin off my back if it doesn't go well. And, I ended up winning the competition and just went like, oh, okay, this is a good opportunity for like a part-time job while I'm in college. And And so, it's just started competing a little bit more often, started putting more emphasis on my training, instead of just showing up when it's convenient, actually showing up on a regular basis, working on weaknesses. And it just kind of slowly built over a couple of years until I qualified for the CrossFit Games, which are essentially the world championships of CrossFit. And rookie year, took second place, went back a second time after a year of kind of shit training, took second place again. And then it was after that second place that I just went, okay, time to buckle down, take this seriously. I want to win. And just kind of dedicated everything, or not kind of dedicate. I did dedicate everything. Every decision for an entire year was revolved around, is this going to help me win, or is this going to pull me away from my goal? And when I say every decision, it's every fucking decision came down to that.
I think I read that you even got to the point that leading up to like a competition, you didn't want to use a steak knife. You didn't ride your motorcycle.
Yep.
You didn't anything that would potentially prevent you from training.
The one in 1,000 chance, something as simple as unloading my bar and putting my weights back away into the weight rack. It's very typical, 45, 55 pound plate. You can kind of pinch it with one hand and put it in the rack. But, there's that 1 in 1,000 chance that it slips out of your hand, lands on your toe. And I was like, nope, month before the games, everything's very intentional, reloading plates with 2 hands, something that simple that odds are, yeah, I'll be perfectly fine. But I've seen it. I've had bruised toes from dropping a plate. I've had friends that showed up to competitions like the world championships with a broken toe. And yeah, okay, it didn't really interfere too much in the competition. Wasn't a determining factor of, whether he made it or didn't make it. But if you have 2 workouts to have running and some of your effort, some of your mental state is going towards, fuck, my toe hurts. Well, it sways it. If you need to modify your training for the 2 weeks leading into the competition, that's going to hinder your performance. Yeah. And so, I definitely went above probably what was necessary, but I wasn't willing to take that chance because I went from the year of inconsistent training, inconsistent diet, not a great sleep schedule, all these things. And I got second place. And then, I decided, I was like, okay, I don't want to leave anything to what if. I don't know what the variables are that will determine if I win or lose. And so I don't want to take a chance. I want to just hit every variable perfectly. And so I just kind of said, like, okay, I'm going to take 1 year out of my life, and it's dedicated towards this. So realistically, the training season is probably 9-10 months. And I was like, 9 to 10 months in the grand scheme of life, it's over like that, And so I did that. And then I won the CrossFit Games in 2016, and I won it by the largest margin of victory in the history of the games. And I went, oh, I like that. Let's do that again. And I just put it on repeat, and I tried to, find even more places that I could, get these 0.25% benefit, and then did it in 2017, broke my own record, even a bigger margin of victory. Did it in 2018, even bigger margin of victory. Fourth time was it was a very unique season. I won, but the point spread got a little messy in the middle there. And then my final season, once again, same thing, largest margin of victory ever at the games, most event wins at the games, just smashed all the records. And so, I had 5 seasons where I was like, okay, this is what my life revolves around. And in the grand scheme, so I'm retired from competing. I retired at 30 years old. And I was like, okay, 5 years in the grand scheme of life is this little tiny window. But, I'm going to live with those achievements, live with those benefits for the rest of my life.
Well, and I think the one thing that's interesting is in your retirement letter that I read, it talked about how every single decision you made, like you just referenced, was made towards this, and it came at a sacrifice to your friends, your family, your social life, your relationship. Yeah. Everybody around you had to kind of buy into what you were doing.
Yeah. When I first started, so Sammy and I started dating immediately after the 2015 games. So she literally only ever saw one version of me. And the the only reason that relationship worked was because she bought in. She saw that I had a goal. She saw that I was dedicated. And I think she saw that it was a non-negotiable. And she was in the space. She worked at Reebok and worked with CrossFit. So she was familiar with other competitors and what they did. But then once we spent enough time together, she saw that, like, okay, like, this is very important. And it's not like there were never any smiles in throughout my career or travels or stuff like that. But when it was training season, it was locked in. And, the first couple of years that we dated, or not even a couple of years, the first year we dated, we did distance. She lived in Providence, I lived in Vermont, and every other weekend, one of us would make the drive for the weekend. And so, we saw each other every other weekend, but we only had to do the commute once a month. And at a certain point, I think it was leading into regionals, and I was just like, hey, like, I can't do this drive anymore, for the rest of the season, because, I'm having to sit in the car for 4 hours. And then when I'm there, I'm not at my gym. I'm not sleeping in my bed. I'm not eating my food. It was just all these little things. Like, any one of those things on their own probably wouldn't have made a difference, but you compound them all up. And I'm like, I'm no longer having an ideal training session. And, she just was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll just do the commute to you when I can. And so, little things like that, you do that thing on its own, yeah, probably won't make a difference. But now you do it throughout the entire year, every other weekend. It's like, all right, now you have 20 something weekends that were non-ideal training days. And then, if you're training 2 or 3 days while you're there, it's like those start to add up. That's a large portion of your training days throughout the season that have now gone to shit.
Do you think that's what contributed a lot to your success, was that commitment of, because, when I watch the games on TV, everybody in there is very physically gifted and obviously have put in a lot of work.
Yeah.
But then to see, like, the margin of victory that you had over other very gifted athletes,
Yeah, I think
it's a credit to both you physically, but is it the dedication and commitment that you made here that separates you from the pack?
There's not a definitive answer. There's no way of saying, like, this is 100% the reason that I had the results I had. I think there's definitely a couple different factors. I'm sure a big part of it was how I structured my training. A big part of it was, the values that I put on movement quality during training. There were no sacrifices of, okay, the way I move during muscle ups is good enough. It was, no, I'm constantly striving for perfection, knowing that I'm never going to reach it, but I'm always trying to inch closer and closer. The emphasis that I put on, finding unique movements, finding professionals in their field. So, when I realized, all right, deadlifting is a weakness, I'm not just deadlifting 3 times a week without a plan. I'm seeking out a professional, one of the best in the world, to teach me how to deadlift and give me a deadlifting program. The same way I approach running, the same way I approach sprinting, the same way I approach every modality there was. If it's a possibility for me to seek out the professional so I can take the guesswork out of it, I am. Then there's the emphasis on, recovery work. I would do minimum an hour of body work per day. A fixture in our living room was a massage table. And the last season I actually flew in a bodywork specialist, and he would stay at the house for 3 days every other week. And we would do like three PT sessions per day. But then throughout the rest of my career, I would go get bodywork by the best person in the world, Alex Guerrero. He runs TB12. He's taught by Tom Brady's side every day. And, I worked with him, and, he made it very clear, like, all right, once the season starts, once the football season starts, I can't be coming to see you because I'm with Tommy. And so he would bring in Sammy and O'Keefe, my manager, into the room and show them how to do the body work, the trigger points that I needed, so that when he was busy, now Sammy can do it. When I'm at a competition and O'Keefe's on my coaching band, O'Keefe can do it. So, there's little things like that where, yeah, that one PT session probably didn't make a difference, but Sammy having the capabilities and the willingness to, every night when I get home from training, I'm belly down on that massage table and Sammy's hitting the spots on my back that I can't hit. So, I'm sure there's a million different things. Who knows which one actually contributed to that point margin? But yeah, there were, like, my day from eyes open to eyes closed revolved around what's going to make me perform the best today and the best tomorrow. And there were no sacrifices. I didn't want to leave anything to what if.
So I think that's a huge takeaway is so many times we get caught up looking for like the one major thing that's going to change.
Yeah,
but it's not. It's all the little things that, we see successful people. We're like, oh, they must do this, but you don't see all the little things they do, like you just said, from sun up to sundown.
Yeah, and it's like not every day. There's not going to be one thing. There's not going to be one training session that makes you go, holy fuck, I'm world champion now. No, there's not. Like, there's not even a distinct, like, you probably won't even see the progressions too obviously, unless it's like a barbell or like something where there's a nominal effect of I now lift more weight, or now I run a faster mile time. It's just that combination of all the little things going on. And it's the same in the business world of like, there's not one business meeting where you just go like, poof, we figured it out. We now have a successful company. No, it's grinding every single day, and it's doing all those little things right. And it's kind of like that graph that you see of like the difference between 1% better every day and 1% worse every day. Yeah. And it's just like, it compounds. It just boop, 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 and it just levels up before you even realize it. Like Sam and I we went for a walk earlier today, and we kind of talked about it, the amount of days that we have where we just feel like we're running in circles. We are working our asses off all day. And it's like from eyes open to eyes closed, we are working. And like, we'll be in bed and Sammy's like, I feel like I'm run ragged and I feel like I didn't accomplish a fucking thing today. And I'm like, damn, me too. Like, this is, why are we doing this? Like, are we doing the right things? Like this questioning of like, fuck, are we doing the shit we should be doing? And then, a day like today where we look back over what we've done in the last 3 months, and I was like, holy shit. Like, we've developed all of this in the last 3 months, never mind the last 2 years. But on a day-to-day basis, I constantly feel like a failure. I constantly feel like I'm coming up short. You're just on repeat of trying to do the right thing, and it seems like people don't want to reward you for it. It's the shady people, like, the mean people finish first, and it's like, fuck. But then you look back over a year and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, I'm not going for that instant gratification. I'm doing the right things for the right reasons. And over the long haul, it shows.
It's going to pay off.
Yeah.
So as you transition from competitor or athlete into the business world, you just mentioned that your entire day was laid out from training, nutrition, recovery. Were you worried about filling that void?
Yeah, that was definitely the number one concern. When I retired from competing, it was, I was excited. I was excited for the next chapter, but I didn't really know what it would entail. The one thing I know myself very, very well. I know what makes me tick. I know what I like, and more importantly, I know what I don't like. And I know what can put me into a spiral. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's having idle hands. It's not having a purpose in the day. It's not having a reason to get up, not having a reason to have to get up. If I don't have anything to accomplish that, I can sleep till noon, like without batting an eye, But so I know I need to keep myself busy. I know I need to work towards something, have goals that I'm always progressing towards. And so when I knew I was retiring from competing, I made sure to have like a half dozen projects lined up, like that, to have them available so that if I want to work on them, I can. And so when I first retired, I was like, I'm going to take 2 of these projects, feel them out, get the ball rolling on them, and then move on to the next 2. And, out of those 6, I figured one would be an absolute smashing success. One might be kind of mediocre, and then the other four would probably be either complete failures or I would hate them. And so I would just kind of toss those to the side. But I didn't know which ones would be which. And, took on the first two projects, and then they kind of blew up bigger than I was anticipating. And I enjoyed them a lot more than I was anticipating. So I was like, all right, I guess this is what I'm doing now. We launched Podium Nutrition. That ended up being, way cooler than I was anticipating. And, it's been a lot of fun, and it's growing. And then HWPO training, that launched, and, fucking love doing that. I figured it would be kind of one of those things that I don't know if I'll like it or dislike it. So I agreed to do it for 1 year, and then was just like, even if I hate it, I can grit through anything for a year, and ended up loving it. So, we just kind of doubled down, and that's now what's taken up, most of my time, energy, and resources.
And I know that you've built like an app under the HWPO name. Is that more geared towards like high-end athletes, or
no
scaled for like everything from?
Yeah, so we have a track. We have a track for, basically any skill level. So when we first launched it, we had a partner, they hosted the programming on their app, and then, and we signed a 1-year deal, and that 1-year deal kind of was coming to a close, and we knew, all right, either I'm doubling down to this or I'm dropping it. And the obvious choice was doubling down, and let's try to grow this thing and build something great here. And we just wanted to have control. This is my baby, and we wanted to have full control over, not having other people's opinions determine our end results. And so, we built our own app, launched that, month or two ago. And yeah, so we do have a track for CrossFit competitors, but that in terms of our overall membership is, it's just a sliver. That track is 2 sessions per day, 6 days per week. It's very intense. It's for people that are making their living competing in CrossFit. The flagship track that we launched is, I think 90 minutes to 2 hours per day of training. So it's a decent volume, and that's if you're hitting every piece, the bonus work, the accessory work, everything. And, it's a decent skill level. Like it's progressing to hit personal records and stuff. And then we have a HWPO 60. So that's 60 minutes in and out of the gym with the workout, weightlifting, Metcon, and accessory work. And then we just launched HWPO sweat. So it's very minimal equipment, no barbells, no gymnastics, a lot of body weight movements, very like one machine per workout. So, and it's just get you in and out of the gym in 45 minutes, super low impact. And it's just about getting a good sweat for the day. So we have programs for every skill level. The next steps that we're looking at taking are making programs that are sport specific or, career specific. So, thinking more along the lines of a track that is, just to get you strong, or a track for bodybuilding, swimming, military base. We're looking at all those options, because we want to have our app be the one-stop shop that if you have an interest in fitness and you want a workout program, it doesn't matter what your end goal is, we have something for you.
Will you eventually try to tie in like a nutrition aspect to that, since you have
Yeah, I think that's the next natural progression. We want eventually we want to be the one-stop shop for everything, but it's the part, when I first launched the programming, it was me and only me. That was it. It was me, my laptop at my desk with notebooks, calculators, spreadsheet, like that was it.
Which that makes me think you're an engineer by trade, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got those sat in storage for like 6 years. And then I was walking through my storage unit, and I was looking through bins of some of my old shit, and I was like, oh, look at these. Oh, I should hang these up somewhere. I worked really hard for these, but I've never used them.
I just thought of that when you were talking about like spreadsheets and calculators and everything. And
oh yeah, it was just like being back in college at my desk with loose leaf papers, notepads, TI-83 out, pens, just running numbers, and basically playing a giant game of Tetris of how do I fit in all these different workouts and strength pieces so that they complement each other? We're not overloading certain joints or muscle groups or anything like that. But, with expanding more and more programs, there's only so much time in the day. So, I can only write and do videos for a certain amount. So once we start getting into more sport specific things, career specific programs, I want to make sure that we have the right people in place to, we have, a channel on Circle where, once you join a certain track, you're entered into this, and then any questions, you type out your questions. We have form checks. So people could take videos of anything they're doing in the gym, and we'll have a coach critique their technique. In the flagship program, I do daily videos. So every day of training, there's a 15-minute video of me walking you through every piece of training for that day, of how to approach it, how to strategize, how to scale it, all those different things. So, the more and more programs we open up, the more and more people we need to bring in, because there's just not enough time in the day for me to do all that stuff. And I could go to the gym and be like, hey, who wants to do affiliate programming? And I'm sure somebody will raise their hand and be willing to do it, but that's not what we're looking for. Unless we're going to make an honest run at being the absolute best program out there in that specific field, I have no interest in taking it. Even if, it could probably be a success, people would probably be happy with it, but I wouldn't be. So I want to make sure that anything that HWPO puts its name on is going to take a real shot at being the best program out there.
Well, it's much like your career where you left nothing to chance.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be something that you're involved with, you want to cover all your bases and have all the little details handled.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's going to be, for every 100 customers, 99 of them won't notice the attention that we pay to detail. They'd be perfectly happy getting an Excel spreadsheet and just doing that. But then for that 1 out of 100 that, they didn't understand, they don't know a certain movement, every movement that shows up in the program, we link in video clips from our movement library. So when I put, all right, hang squat snatch, if somebody is brand new and doesn't know what a hang squat snatch is, they click on the movement and then there's a video of me doing that movement. So, little things like that where, 99% of the people can read the workout and they know what every piece is and they know how to do it. But then for that 1 out of 100 that needs like a quick visual of what it is, that it's there. And it's like, you look at how many movements there are, like we did a couple of movement library days and it's like, all right, 4 days in a row and we're hitting 120 movements per day. It's a full fucking day of training. And it's those little differences that I think set us apart from the other people. You do enough of those little things and they add up to really
and for that one person that doesn't know how to do it, they're going to go on YouTube and then there's a million different variations and some really bad, some are good, but they have no idea of knowing which one to go watch.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we want to over provide information. One of my buddy who's the now the CEO, O'Keefe, he, we had talks of like, what is our goal here? Like, is our goal to, cash out and get every dime we can? Is our goal to just get as many members? Is our goal to have, lower member count, but a higher price or vice versa? Like what are the goals of our business? And we both landed on, we want our customers to feel like they're stealing from us. If they buy a track, we want them to feel like, oh shit, did you mean to give me access to all this other stuff or to have all these other resources? Whereas like our price point is right on par with every other program out there. But we have, weekly or monthly calls with our members where it's me sitting right here going through pre-submitted questions, going through that week of training, and then opening it up for a question and answer so that they can, if they have anything that pops in their mind, they have direct access to me to ask the question. We do the daily workout videos where we're providing the information. We have movement libraries linked to it. We have every option of program that you could want, So like and it's all for the same price. We're not doing, hey, if you want this feature, it's an extra $5. Hey, if you want this one, it's an extra $2 per month. No, it's one price point, and we give you everything that we can possibly think of as a resource, because we want to be the place that people come to when you think fitness, you want a good workout, you come to HWPO.
That's pretty cool. The one price point, because most apps and stuff, it's all done in modules where if you want, this one, it's this much more a month, or
like we have one track, the pro track for the people that are competing. That one is a little bit more money, but there's a couple of reasons for it. One, we wanted to make sure that, hey, if you're signing up for this, you're doing it. You're putting a value on it. If you're spending a little bit more money, you're more likely to stick with it. But the big point is that we don't program that one ahead of time. We program it live throughout the season.
Okay.
So it's like when there's a competition announcement Thursday afternoon, we are testing the workout immediately. And then we're modifying the rest of that week of training immediately. When it's coming to competitions, we're being very involved. We're having communication with athletes. Like, we're traveling to the competitions to spend time with athletes. And then we do a weekly call with that one instead of a monthly. So it's 4 times the work on our end. And then there's also 2 training sessions per day instead of 1. So it's like quadruple the work on our end. And we intentionally try to deter people from signing up for it. The typical person thinks, more is better. If 1 workout per day is good, 2 is better. And it's like, that's absolutely not the case for everybody. And so we try to put in some hard contingencies of like, hey, if you're not snatching 265 pounds, if you're not running a minimum 6-minute mile, if you're not, squatting, 405, if you're a competitor, they're very achievable milestones. But, we were trying to deter it because we knew, hey, people will think it's pro, it's better, there's more volume, so it's better, I'll get fitter. And it's like, if you're not at this certain skill level, this training will be a detriment to you, and you'll end up getting injured.
If you're doing twice a day like that, you then also have to take the time for the recovery and all that, which if you're working a career or job, that's a commitment that most people can't make.
Exactly. So, when you're on the pro track, I made it very clear, like, you are expected to have, access to different venues. So whether you're going for a trail run, mountain biking, road biking, access to a track, access to a pool, open water swimming, strongman equipment, stuff that typically isn't in a CrossFit gym. And then on top of it, you're training twice a day. So, and you need to take a couple hour break in between. You can't just do one super long session. But then also the time spent outside of the gym. You're expected to be getting body work. You're supposed to be getting like a PT or a massage session once per week minimum. Sleeping 9 to 10 hours a night, access to a sauna, access to an ice bath. There's a lot of other stuff that goes in, because if you're trying to do this professionally, if you're trying to make a living at it, your life revolves around it.
So kind of along that same thought, when you decided that you were going to step away and retire, did you know for sure that you were done, or?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I didn't know because you went out on top. Was it in the back of your mind, like, I should do it one more year or try it one more year?
No. So the 2020 season was my last season, and that was my one more year.
Okay.
I remember I had told my manager and agent and like one of my best friends in 2019 that I retired. Week after the games, I was like, yeah, man, I'm done. And he was just like, I don't know if you're going to be happy with that decision. And then, we had a good talk about it, and I realized, like, okay, yep, I'll do one more. But after that 1 year, when I do something like that, when I decide like, I'm going all in or I'm all out, there's not too much flip flopping. Usually when I make up my mind about something, that's the final answer. And so when I finally stepped away, it was time. I had mentally been ready for a long time to be done with it. There was just so much stuff in my life that I had to put on hold. Something as simple as getting involved with like income properties, real estate. that was something that I've wanted to do for a long, long time. And I remember early in my career, I think I may have just won once. And so I was going to take that money and, do what I thought was the smart thing and invest it in real estate and I was going to buy a triplex and live in one unit and rent out the other two. And I was, I asked my accountant, like, hey, is this a good idea? Can I afford this? Everything that's involved with it. And he had said, he was like, what the fuck are you doing? Don't do that. I was like, oh, I thought you'd be pumped that like I'm not spending this money on a car or something risky,
Yeah.
like this is a good investment. And he was like, if everything goes perfectly right, you have the perfect tenants, nothing breaks, how much will you make? I was like, like 24,000, whatever the number was. I don't remember the specifics, but, and he goes, okay, now if you have a tenant that keeps you up every night until 2 a.m, everything's breaking, you have to call emergency plumbers, everything goes wrong and it costs you winning the games. How much will it cost you? I was like, okay, I get what you're saying here. And he was like, you make your fucking money competing, go compete. Don't do anything else. Put everything on hold. Go compete. And I was like, okay. And I took that to heart. And so, I put off all these different business ventures or just interests, whether because they were too risky or too time demanding, whatever it was, I put them off for years and years. And so I think I was just so excited to start pursuing some of these other goals, these other interests that, the day I retired, it was just like this huge weight off my shoulders of like, okay, I can go do this other stuff now.
And thinking about, you referenced Tom Brady earlier, I don't think people fully understand the commitment and the sacrifices that guy has made for doing what he's done at 20 plus years, 45 years old, still getting himself to play at that level is incredible.
Yes. Like even just the PT sessions he goes through, so the guy that I worked with, Alex Guerrero, when you see Tom Brady in public, it's kind of like a Where's Waldo game of like, all right, there's Tom, where's Alex? And he's, dude, all over the place. He's always within the vicinity. He's always within like a 10-foot radius somewhere. And, I've had the pleasure of working with Alex. He's the reason that I had a couple competitions I was able to compete. I had injuries that were going to prevent me from training, competing, accomplishing anything. And this fucking guy has magic hands and just like fixed. And Tom does like 3 sessions a day with him every single day. And these are sessions that when people hear, you get 3 massages a day, our interpretation of a massage is enjoyable and it's
relaxing,
feels good. No, like this, Alex, I have passed out on his table. I have been in cold sweats. I've tapped out. It was an injury that was going to prevent me from competing for the season. And, I worked with a doctor in Nashville and he was like, yeah, 6 to 8 weeks until you can start lifting again. And I'm like, dude, I got a competition in 5. Like, and it's a non-negotiable. I'm competing. And, I remember I left a session there and I was in tears. I was hopeless and just like, I didn't know. I felt like a used piece of meat that was just on the counter getting fucking hammered out. and then I'm like, dude, I have to compete in 5 weeks. And this guy's telling me minimum 6 weeks. And then it's a maybe. And I talked to Alex and I was like, dude, I need help. Like, give me something. And he was like, sorry, man, I'm in Tampa. I work with Tommy every day. And until 3. And I was like, all right, if I come to Tampa, can you work on me? And he's like, yep, I'm after 3 o'clock. I'm all yours. And so I was like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow afternoon. And like caught a flight down to Tampa. And he told me, he was like, oh, I'll have you fixed in 3 to 5. I was like, all right, 3 to 5 weeks is better than 6 to 8. And he was like, no, days. And I was like, all right, man, we'll see. Dude, down there, he worked on me for probably 2 hours, came to the house that we had, just worked on me. And it was like the most painful thing that's ever happened to me. He's working on a muscle in my back through my abs, like just moving guts out of the way and just like digging into this muscle. And then he finishes and he just goes, all right, like grab your gym bag. We're going to the gym. You're going to max out your back squat. And I was like, dude, I haven't squatted over 135 in a month. Like, I can't load up. And he was like, yeah, I just fixed you. I was like, what if it flares up? And he goes, then I'll fix you again, but I want to see how you move. And it's like, oh shit. All right. And, so like, yeah, there's stuff like that where it's like unfathomable, the amount of pain. And then you realize like, oh, Tom's doing that 3-4 times a day, every single day. Like, holy shit. It's a big time and emotional commitment.
Yes, it is. And even more so when obviously he doesn't have to do it anymore and hasn't had to for a long time from a financial standpoint.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think if I had 25 mil a year rolling in, I might have stayed in the game a little bit longer.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit on you and talk about, we originally met through Dave sent us a text, and how did you get into shooting and where did that come from?
Oh man. It's kind of funny. I don't think I have like the really typical story. I didn't grow up with, my household never had a gun in it growing up. That was, it wasn't even a thing. My family's Canadian. I was born in Ontario, and, guns obviously aren't as prevalent. And so, growing up, it wasn't a thing. I remember like finding out like a friend's dad had a gun, and it just like was like, oh my God, like, what is he, like in a Western movie? Like, why the fuck does your dad have a gun? And I remember the first time shooting, my brother had moved out. My brother's 3 years older. So he moved out, and, I'm 14, 15, and he would, we didn't have much in common. We incredibly different people, like zero common interests. Growing up, it was kind of thing like, how are we related? Like, how were we raised under the same roof? But then, once he moved out, he took me shooting one day, and, I think he picked me up, told my mom that he was taking me to a movie or something. And then like, as we're leaving the driveway, he was like, hey, so like, I don't actually want to go to a movie. Do you want to go to the gun range? And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to go to the gun range. Let's go. And, so he had some pistols, a couple 9mm or something. And, I just thought it was the coolest thing. And then, literally would just go to the range just to waste ammo, hear the bang, and, couldn't hit anything. And then it was once I would go shooting consistently with one buddy. And then one day another guy came along, and we had to knock down target, and we had it set up probably at 15 yards. And, it's 4 to 6 inch plate. And, out of 15 rounds, you maybe hit it once. And we just thought that was normal. And then this guy, Eric, shows up, and, just like 10 out of 10 every time, and fast. And we're like, holy shit, how are you doing that? And so he, and early on, you're like, oh, his gun must just be so good. It's his gun doing the work. And, so he's watching us shoot, and he's kind of he's giving us some pointers. And then like, he like, I think he loaded one of our mags, and he put a dummy round in it. And so, go to pull a dummy round, and we're flinch. And he goes, did you see how you flinched there? Like, you're doing that. That's not the recoil of the gun. You're just flinching because you're anticipating a bang. And that was my first dose of, getting a critique or a pointer and then applying it. And now like my hit rate just doubled. And I was like, oh, that's gratifying. Like, learning a little bit more of the technique and then applying it and seeing the results. And so I think I just got hooked. Like, I think it was like that day, just like anything else. You get some proper coaching, then you apply it, and you see, you get that dose of gratification of like, good job. You fix something there. And, I think that just got me hooked, and then just boom, 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 and it ended up being my rest day activity. If I'm left to my own devices, I won't leave my house. I'm a homebody. I'm okay if I don't see daylight for a month straight. But I know it's good for me to get outside and do something. And so, I would train on Sundays when the gym was empty. And then I started taking Mondays as rest days, because then the gun range is empty. And that was my Monday activity. And, just load up some friends and just drop the tailgate on the truck and half the time you're shooting, half the time you're just kind of, shooting the breeze with your buddies. But it's just a good excuse to get outside, and it's always, trying to get better and better, and especially when you get a shot timer running into the mix, and you start challenging your buddies, and trying to see who can go faster.
And in a lot of ways, it's kind of like training or working out, that your mind really can't be a bunch of other places.
It's you're focusing on the task at hand, and it's just technique. It's just like, it's like the drills that make you good aren't the ones that look sexy on Instagram, and it's just like draw one shot, reload one shot, and it's like that's it.
I was just going to say that, like, our competitive shooters that shoot for us, they always talk about getting on that first plate. They'll work on that, but they said nobody wants to do that because that's not fun. They want to run the entire rack.
Yep.
But they said at the top level, the majority of your victories come getting on that first shot fastest.
Yeah. There's so many parallels, and it's one of the perks of competing and getting to meet a bunch of cool people is you get to meet a lot of people that are the best in the world at their craft, and things that have no similarities to what I competed in. But then you start hearing the stories and how they train and how they compete and all this stuff, and it's like, oh, holy shit, there's so many parallels. It's like our stories are almost identical along the way. And, I've gotten to meet a lot of people that are best in the world competitive shooters, and I'm like, what does a day of training look like for you? And they're just like, it's not what you see on Instagram. At the end of your day of training, you do one run through your course to get something sexy to post on your Instagram. But they're like, when I'm doing a real day of training, it's the basics, it's the fundamentals, it's the unsexy stuff, it's technique. I'm like, yep, sounds pretty familiar.
Well, and it was interesting. I had Buck from Leupold Optics on our podcast last week, and he said now he's on the government side training. He's been a former sniper instructor, but he says some of the best people he's ever trained or that he has the most fun with are athletes or former competitors. Because he said, one, they can listen and take direction.
Yeah.
And they have like spatial awareness of knowing what their body's doing.
Yeah.
He said, where a lot of average people, and I'll throw myself in that category. What I think I'm doing is completely different from what a video shows that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But he said athletes, for whatever reason, from being coached and watched and all this, have a much better awareness of kind of what their body's doing.
Yeah.
And he said it's so fun to coach them.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a couple days of instruction for, long distance shooting and pistol. And, you're kind of, most instructors kind of they're trying to preface it of like, we're going to work fundamentals. Like, we are not going to be doing mag dumps. We're not running around with a full auto that's going to just like spray the target. We're working on like even taking the gun out of the holster, making sure your elbow's back and that you're getting into the gun at the right spot and you're applying pressure at the right spot. And they're going so heavy. And for myself, you kind of want to say like, hey man, I get it. You don't need to convince me that this is the right thing. Like, this is what I do in training every day. I'm willing to put the same fundamentals and the same, base building in with this new task. We Buddy and I went to first ever jiu-jitsu class the other night, and the instructor, it's the same thing. Where I'm kind of asking questions like, hey, what does a practice session look like? Like, you have class from 6 to 7. What's involved in that? And he's like, well, we're not just fighting the whole time. Like don't get excited. We're not going live for the entire hour. Like, we do this, and then we work on a warm up, then we do positional skill work, then we do some sparring from certain specific start positions. Like, he's kind of going through it. I'm like, okay, cool. And then like he keeps trying to like pound it in. I'm like, dude, I get it. Like, this is what I do. This is what I do for a living, of working on the basics so that when, the output is demanded, your body only knows how to move one way.
But I think most people, like you said, they want to get to that end point so they can get the cool Instagram photo.
Yeah, of course.
without
I mean,
getting,
who doesn't?
yeah.
If you're not doing it for the gram, why are you doing it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I like, the HWPO, the hard work pays off. I mean, it's simple, but it's so true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of times people look at the slogan of hard work pays off, and they see that as like the grinding work, doing more squats, doing more rowing intervals, doing more tracks, whatever it is. And for me, I'm like, no, that's not always it. Sometimes the hard part is forcing yourself to take a rest day. Like, I know for a lot of people, it's not more physically hard, but mentally it's fucking tough taking a rest day. Or it's mentally tough telling yourself, like, hey, 10 p.m. TV's turned off so I can go to bed. Having a wake up time. Like, it's not always hard physical work pays off. A lot of times it comes down to the mental aspect of it. And it's like those little things, even outside the gym, that are going to contribute. And it's like one day of doing things right, you won't even notice a difference. But now you do every piece right, 365 days a year. That's where you start seeing the compounding effects. And that puts you into a whole different level.
Well, and that even makes me think, kind of, we'll get asked questions of what separates like our guns from our competitors. And I'll kind of answer it the same way you have, is I'm like, it's not just one thing. We've been refining these for the last, 30, 40 years when my dad started. And it's always trying to find, okay, 1% here, something here. And then you combine, but it's a very boring conversation to have with the average consumer as well. In, 2002, we figured out that if we do this.
Yeah, exactly.
They're looking for that one piece.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's always progress, not perfection. You're never going to reach perfection. There can always be something that is better, but it's just always in the pursuit of perfection. I look at it like a limit curve of like, I know I'm going to forever be approaching that line while never achieving it. And it's like, it can be frustrating. And I think early on, having that realization that like, I will never be perfect at this, it kind of sucks. But at the same time, it's also exciting because then you realize like, oh, I can always be improving. There's no ceiling on this. And that applies to everything, whether, you're competing in CrossFit, building an app, building a platform, building guns. I have buddies that are, the best snowboarders in the world, the best welders in the world, the best table makers in the world, like all these different things. And all of our stories have so many parallels in them where it's like welding and CrossFit have fucking nothing in common. But my buddy and I, we kind of both talked about how we got into it, the obstacles we had to overcome, how we overcame them, our mental state of, what's our inner dialogue like. There are so many parallels between them that it was kind of comical. We're both kind of cracking up at this.
Yeah.
And it's that mindset of just knowing that like, no, I'll never be satisfied. Once you wrap your mind around the fact that you'll never be satisfied with achieving a goal, all you'll do is then just make a more difficult, bigger goal.
Yes.
And once you realize that the pursuit of the goal is the exciting part. The idea of achieving that goal is the exciting part. That's the fulfilling part. Achieving that goal, holy shit, was that a letdown the first time I did it. The first time I won the games, I was like, oh, I thought I was supposed to like feel different now. I thought I was supposed to like, I don't know, like I just achieved a new level in life and I'm going to like power up. And I thought there was like something wrong with me of like, why am I not happy? Why am I not fulfilled by that? And then once I realized like, oh, I don't actually give a shit about the end results. I care about the process and doing things right all the way there. That's what matters. And then once I accepted that, holy shit, things got great.
That's crazy because I've heard like other pro athletes talk about like winning a World Series or winning the Super Bowl is one of the biggest, it's an achievement, but it can also be one of the biggest letdowns.
Yeah.
Because they spent their entire life reaching that pinnacle and then it's over.
Yeah. Like, I remember hearing one, and this is like the one that kind of like stated it most clearly and made me feel confident, that the emotions I had weren't incorrect. Do you know Tyson Fury?
Yes.
Boxer? Yeah. Heavyweight champ. He talks about like through his childhood there was one dominant guy. He was the heavyweight champ while he grew up, and then their careers overlapped. And this is the pinnacle. This is what he's trained his entire life for. And Tyson Fury told his brother before the match, he goes, if and when I win this match, I will slip into a severe depression. And his brother was like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is what we've trained for our whole lives. If you win, you're world champion. You are the best. And he goes, exactly. And then what? He goes, this has been my goal. This has been my light at the end of the tunnel for 20 years now. What the hell is my goal? What the hell is my purpose in life once I achieve this goal that I thought was unobtainable? And sure enough, like he won the fight and he went into a terrible, terrible depression because he's like, what's my purpose now? What am I striving towards? And obviously I never had it to that extent where, like I'm having bad thoughts, but I've had points where like you go blue of just like, you have just more and more sad days. Cause I'm like, all right. And it was whenever I had those sad days, I would go, okay, I need to find a new goal quickly. I need to have something to chase. I need to have something to apply my efforts towards. I need to have a reason to get out of bed. Like when I first retired and my projects, like I've done all the work, I'm weeks ahead on work. I can kind of take some time. Holy shit, was it a pathetic life? I'm staying up until 3 a.m. watching Netflix. I'm sleeping until noon. And it's like, oh, I just feel like trash all the time. I'm not contributing to society in any way, shape, or form. And then it's like, oh, okay, like this is not a good formula for my life. I can't have idle hands.
And it's hard to think for like the average person like us. You're only 30 years old when you have retired from, So it's not like, society tells us we retire when we get to 65 or 7, whatever the age is.
Yeah.
You're 30 years old and you've accomplished everything you had set out to at that point.
Yeah. I mean, most things like, I think like the physical test, the physical competitiveness, I was like, okay, I'm
on the CrossFit side, I should say.
I'm satisfied there.
Yeah.
There's still there's a laundry list of stuff that I still need to accomplish.
So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but there's one question I like to ask all of our guests is I always feel like there's been a pivot point in their life, whether it was good or bad or indifferent at the time, that kind of redirected them, or it's something they can point to now and be like, that's the one thing that altered or changed the course of my life or changed the path.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I'm assuming you're asking what mine is?
Yes.
Yeah. So I probably have, there's probably a half dozen different ones, from the last 15 years that, looking back now, I'm like, oh, okay, that was a huge life change for me. I think the most obvious one, and I think it was the most drastic because my viewpoint, the way I looked at the moment, has done a complete 180 over the last couple of years. But it was my 2015 season. So 2014, I got second place and I was through the moon. I was super, super excited. I exceeded all my expectations and I was over the moon excited. And then the guy who won first place was retiring. And so I was like, dude, I'm a shoo-in. I just need to show up. I'm second place, first place retire. I get first place now. That's how it works, And so, my year of training was shit. I didn't sleep consistently. My training was inconsistent. My diet was shit. My recovery was non-existent. Like everything, every corner you could cut, I did. And so, I went to the 2015 games and I got the exact same results as 2014. I got second place again. And I was like borderline depression over it. I was questioning my life. I was questioning, why am I doing this? And, and for years I hated that medal. I had it framed, or maybe my parents got it framed for me. But anyways, it sat on my wall and I hated that fucking medal. And then even after the 2016, when I got a gold medal, they got that one framed. It hung right next to it. And still hated that silver medal. 27, like each year. And like, I remember saying in interviews, like I love looking at my 2014 medal. I love looking at my 2016 medal. I fucking hate that one because it represented all the cut corners. But then years later, having that realization that I wouldn't have had the career I had without that medal. The worst thing that could have happened to my career is if I won in 2015. Because if I ate like shit, slept like shit, trained like shit, and then won, I would have continued those habits. I would have said, nope, that was a good enough effort through the year. That's what I'll maintain. Like that work ethic got me the results I wanted. So I'm going to maintain that work ethic and keep having kind of mediocre results. But because I got a swift kick in the teeth and this huge disappointing, like it literally came down to the final workout in front of, 10, 12,000 people, and me just having just a shit result. But it was because of that I then made the commitment that following year to have no compromises, no exceptions in my training. And then I got the biggest margin of victory ever. And then the next year again. There's zero chance I would have done that if I had won in 2015. I probably would have had an okay career, but it probably would have been mediocre. Yeah, I may have grabbed another gold medal or two, but nothing crazy.
Not in the way you did it in such dominating fashion.
Exactly. I would have never had a reason to make the commitment to go all in and not sacrifice everything. So that moment, like, and I remember it so vividly, of like knowing that I got second place, walking out of the stadium into the tunnel and just like being alone and just crying and just like this hopelessness feeling. And now I look back, I'm like, thank God that happened, because if I didn't, who knows where I would have ended up. But like, yeah, it was one of those moments where it was super disappointing, super heartbreaking in the moment. But you look back 5-6 years down the road and you're like, you realize the life lessons and the things that you just changed in your day-to-day life because of it. And you're like, oh man, that was like the best thing that ever happened to me. Good.
And I think you can even see that as you're carrying it into your business career of, even if 99 out of 100 are good, that's not good enough for me. I want 100 out of 100.
Yeah. And it's like, I've had a couple other things, like when I broke my back, hopelessness. And then I overcame that obstacle. And in the moment, I didn't know how, I didn't know why, I didn't know anything, but I was like, you look back a year after that surgery, I'm like, okay, I did it. Something as simple as getting dumped by a girl, like I look at, my past relationships and it's like hopelessness. You're heartbroken. And then I look back now, I'm like, thank God that happened, because otherwise I wouldn't have met Sammy.
Yeah.
My weightlifting career coming to an end. Thank God my weightlifting career didn't pan out the way I wanted it to, because if it had, I would have retired from that and I never would have pursued another sport. I never would have had that competitive drive to still pursue something.
Well, and even the owner of the CrossFit gym putting you into that first competition, on his dime, saying, if you win, you have to go buy CrossFit shoes.
Yep. There's so many things over the years that I look back now and just in the moment, what I'm able to see that in the moment I was hopeless and didn't know how I was going to get out of the situation. And then seeing where I'm at now and how happy I am years later, that now when something comes up that's a terrible, terrible situation, I'm still sad about it, but I never have hopelessness. Like through my CrossFit career, I remember like there were some things that came up that absolute hopelessness. Like didn't know if the problem, not even, I didn't know how to fix the problem. I didn't know if the problem ever could be fixed. And just having that hopelessness. But at the same time, I remember my inner dialogue thinking like, I wonder what good is going to come of this. I wonder how long it's going to be until I find the silver lining from this situation. And that's been one of the most valuable things for me, of just never having that feeling of hopelessness. Like, yeah, I may be lost. I may not know what to do, but I know it will get fixed. I know I'll come out the other side stronger somehow. And I'm excited to see what that silver lining is going to be when I find it.
That's incredible life advice right there. Well, I just want to say thank you. This has been awesome. It's been an honor having you on. Where can people find out more about the HWPO app? More
Yeah.
Your Instagram.
Yeah. So, if you want to, check out the tracks, check out the app, you can go to hwpotraining.com to sign up and then download the app in the App Store. We have Apple and Android apps available. We actually just launched today, I believe, a 14-day free trial for any of the tracks. So, even if you're on the fence or you don't know if you're going to like it or not, and you don't want to make that, full month commitment, try out the 14-day free trial. If you like it, jump right into the track and keep it going. If you don't like it, just cancel, and you won't get billed, anything like that. So yeah, you can check out HWPO Training on Instagram, or my personal Instagram is at Matthew Fraz.
Well, once again, I appreciate it. This has been awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
And as always, thank you guys for listening. If you ever have any questions or suggestions, please hit us up at podcast@volquartsen.com. Thank you.